Here's the problem. You are running your business based on what everyone else is doing instead of what God specifically designed you to do. You are constantly changing your offers, you are second guessing your pricing, and you're starting to feel like you're throwing strategies at the wall just to see what ends up sticking. But really, the real issue is that you're trying to build without a blueprint. And this matters because when we build without a divine blueprint, we end up creating something that looks good on the outside, but does not have the foundation to create lasting transformation. And I want you to think about the temple that Solomon built. God did not just give him a vision. He gave him very specific instructions. Every detail, every purpose, every measurement had meaning. So let me show you exactly how to fix this within the next 10 minutes with 3 very specific steps that I will show you to give you complete clarity on your business direction. And more importantly, I will explain why each step is so critical for building something that lasts. Okay, so today we are going to go step by step. And I have 10 minutes with you. So really what we need to do is start with step 1. So we're going to kind of build on the stuff that we did in the last episode and really dive a little bit deeper because so many of you came back to me telling me that it was so good, but you wanted more tips. So the thing that I have found within the business space is that most business advice is started and based on market research. And ideally that's great. But the problem is when you're building a kingdom legacy, you need to be very clear on your assignment that God has given you. And so much of what we do within our Eden and Empire group is based on building a strong foundation. And it's so important because when you have clarity on what God has called you to do, it can help lead you into these next steps. And then all that market research can really help guide you in finding more information on what best suits you and best suits your audience and really aligns you with your purpose. And so the thing that I have found is most people are basing it off of, again, just market research, but not basing it off of what their business really needs. So I want you to think of Moses and the burning bush, right? So when he was doing all of that, he did not just start out with God giving him marketing strategies, right? He didn't help Moses lead the Israelites just based on a market strategy. He started revealing to Moses his unique assignment, right? Like why he was so special for that calling. And what I want you to do is begin to think about what yours is. What problem do you solve that is so different than anyone else? I want you to think of what you see within your lens from your own perspective and the perspective that God has called you to. And then one thing that I think that we miss because we're often so close to our genius is really the solution and the unique approach that we have to things. So the things that we have that come naturally to us that most people don't find. So we often end up assuming that what we have to offer is not unique and not different, and that could not be further from the truth. And the reason why it's so important for you to kind of view that from this lens is because it really shows you what God anointed you to do. He gave you a very specific purpose and a very specific blueprint, but it's our job to kind of go in and unlock what those things could be. And I know in working with so many other business owners that this is really hard. This is something that we all struggle with. I know that we created a business with a very specific purpose, a very specific problem in mind, but often we aren't very clear on what it is that we're supposed to do within all of that. And I know for myself, it took a little bit of time for me to be really clear on what God was calling me to do. And the reason why I'm so big on starting with a strong foundation is because when you know exactly what you are called to do, it helps guide you through every single decision that you make within your business. And it allows you to really get clear on the transformation that you want to provide to people. Like, how do you want to take them from point A to point B, right? So next is being really clear on what that transformation is. So I want you to ask yourself, what do people experience when they work with you? A lot of times people think a brand is your visual identity. And actually what a brand is an experience. So our goal in everything that we're doing as a business is to drive people into our community, right? Like we want to want them to become aware of who we are. We want to guide them through all these steps within our customer journey, but ultimately taking them to this point where we can provide a transformation. And I want you to think of, when someone is working with you, what transformation do you provide to them that ends up often surprising you? And really what this is you unveiling what God has given you for your impact. And what I mean by that is, when somebody is working with you, what do people experience? Do people say, oh my gosh, I love her approach. She's so amazing at seeing things from a different perspective. Or she's so amazing at digging deep and finding the root cause of something. Or she's so great at communication. Whatever the case may be, just know that there's something that people are consistently saying about you or to you, whether that's through your reviews, whether that's in communication with you. It could be in multiple different areas, but people are constantly saying things about you when they're working with you. And this gives you a deeper insight into what it is like when people are actually working with you. And so I want you to, as you're doing this, start to write these things down. And I'm really big on that because I feel like what ends up happening is, sometimes when we're internalizing things, it's fine for us to think about it and to kind of process it. But when we don't write it down, it's super easy for us to forget. I do this all the time when I'm working. I have a thought and I'm like so excited about it. And then what ends up happening is that I'm like, oh my gosh, crap. What is it that I said? I cannot even remember. It like escapes me. And so I'm really big on writing those things down, because when we can, I like to put pen to paper, but you can go from like your computer, pull up a Google Docs. I don't care where you write it down, just write it down. But I want you to do that because it's so important in the strategy aspect of it. And you're not just internalizing a thought, you're starting to put it into motion, and putting pen to paper, quote unquote, ends up allowing you to not only see it, but also remember it and start to kind of build upon that. So a lot of times I see people make the mistake of trying to be like everyone else in the market, right? Like I said that in the beginning. And the reason why this is a problem is because you were created with your own specific gifts and talents and abilities, and God gave those to you as a means to impact others. And a lot of times what I see is women come, like in this stage of business that most women that I work with are in, is that they're a little bit seasoned, right? Like they're not beginning in their business. They have, established a client base, they have had success, and now they're really ready to step into that next phase of their business. But what ends up happening is that so much of their business was based on a framework per se. And there's nothing wrong with a framework, but it was a one-size-fits-all approach to their business. And they're struggling with the idea of how to move to that next step, because everything that they've been doing up to this point has been great, right? Like they've had success, but they're not getting to that next level. And the reason being is because those one-size-fits-all approaches can be great for a little while. And then when you want to move into that next step, it can be really complicated, because we're starting to build a business, or we had built so much of our business based on somebody else's framework versus the one that we were designed to build. And again, there is nothing wrong with frameworks, right? Like I have a framework within our Eden and Empire group that it's a great guide, but the reason why it's so important for you to be clear on your own unique talents, your own framework, your own approach to things is because it will help you discern what works best for your business and what doesn't. If you were, let's say, a product-based business, and I told you, oh my gosh, you would be so amazing to market your business in Sephora, right? Or you should go take a newspaper ad out in I don't even know if people do that anymore. You should go to a local newspaper and take an ad out for your product. It may not resonate for your business. And just because it worked for somebody else, it may not work for you. And the best way to figure that out is being clear on who you are and understanding your audience and where they're at. And it's not a one size fits all approach. When God gave you your own specific set of people to impact, your own specific unique approach, and your own specific unique approach to your business, right? Like you created your business and you want it to stand out, but yet you're following somebody else's framework and design and expecting it to fit. It just doesn't work that way. And so you really have to be clear on those things. I want you to think back to the last episode that I did where I spoke. I feel like I'm talking so fast, but I have 10 minutes to share this with you guys. I'll probably go over, but around 10 minutes. I just don't want this episode to be super long. But in this last episode, we really talked about Jesus feeding the 5,000. And the biggest thing that I took away from all of this when I was, when it came to me as I was reading, is that Jesus did not just feed the 5,000, right? He didn't just say, here you go, see you later. He didn't just multiply what he was doing. He had a system. It was all intentional for what he was doing, right? Like he wanted to impact the lives of others. And so he had to be strategic in the way that he performed this miracle. And he knew in the best way that it would impact those people. And he did it based on intention. He did it organized and really with a lot of intentionality. And that's one of the biggest things that I want to harp on, is that as we're creating these systems and these frameworks and figuring out what works best for our audience, not only do we have to understand them on a deeper level, but it has to come with a plan. A lot of times, the women that I work with in this stage is they've built their business so quickly, and for some, it's taken a while, but they built their business from a place of growth, right? They've gotten to this amazing place in their business, but they don't know how they did it. And so the biggest reason why women don't scale past 6 figures or even hit that 6-figure mark is often because they can't duplicate what they did again and again and again, because they have no idea exactly how they did it. And so I would suggest for you to look at your process right now and map out, what is the transformation that I'm providing to people, no matter what offer I have, right? Like maybe you are a service-based business, maybe you sell products, maybe you work B2G, and you are, figuring it out. No matter what it is no matter what industry you're in, we all provide a solution and a transformation. This is what it looked like before I worked with somebody, and this is what it looks like after they encountered me. And along the way, I want you to think about what experience is it that you are providing to them on this journey. So as you're starting out, I want you to think of first collecting your starting point, right? Like their pain point. What's a current struggle that they have? What mindset shift do I want them to have, right? Like where are they right now, and where do I want them to be? And what do I need to do in order to take them to this place? And what strategy can I implement along the way? I want you to think of the skills that they need to develop and the skills that you need to develop in order to help them in the best way. And then from there, what does that final transformation look like? What can people say, because I worked with her, this is what ended up happening? Like we have to be really, really clear on these things, because if we're not even clear on how we can help someone, how is that individual going to understand what it is that we offer to them? How can they understand what it is that they're going to get at the end of having their interaction with us? So I see that happen a lot, where people just start posting and hoping that it sticks, and they have their email list, their marketing plan, whatever, but there's no intentionality behind it. And so in all of the strategy, I use like really simple steps in all of it, because I feel like when you are clear and you can provide a clear journey to others, it can be that much more memorable for our clients when they interact with us. So I want you to take that away from, everything that we talked about in the last podcast episode, because to me, it's so important for us to have a really clear understanding of how to implement those things. And so, when we're going through and we're mapping out our strategy and our plan, having a clear, intentional plan is so key. Like, you have to have a very strong foundation in what you're doing, and being really clear on how you're going to implement that, and then take that to the next level where you're going to help transform the lives of the people that you're working with. So whether you're writing that down in a Google Doc, whether you are writing it pen to paper, please start thinking about how you can really effectively help your audience and bring that experience that only you can provide. So without making this super long, I know I could talk about this all day, and we dive so deep into it in our Eden and Empire group in our first few trainings. But I want to just kind of end it on this because, like I said, I could just go on all day, but just leave you with that. And if there's anything that you want to dive further into, please reach out to me. I'd love to brainstorm some topics with you, some ideas, but I am going to just leave it at that. And I will catch you on the next episode.